我们下一位讲者是 Travis Good，那他是美国 MakerCon 的 Co-Chair，那他同时也是 Maker Faire San Diego 的 Producer。那因为他 Hello
Hello.
Travis，Hello I am introducing you，just give me more time
Okay.
Travis 同时是 Maker Faire San Diego 的 producer，那他们一直在推动一个议题，叫做 Maker City，就是如何跟当地的市政府来合作，就是让 Maker Movement 跟这个城市、这个社群的所有单位，包含政府、包含学校、包含你 Maker 的团体、包含你相关的企业，一起来推这个事情。So Travis, are you ready to show me? Yeah. So Travis, I think we are ready to go.
Sounds good.
Okay, so please welcome Travis Good from San Diego, USA.
Good morning, everybody. I'm saying good morning at a time when I'd like to soon be drinking a beer, which is at night. But right now, I'll just pretend it's the beginning of Maker Faire in Taipei. I'm here to talk to you about maker cities, and in particular, making a maker city. This is something I've spent the last few years working on, and in this presentation, I'll give you a little bit of background, I'll give you some examples, and I'll provide you with a roadmap. Now, the reason I think it's important to start with a little bit of background is because I feel a little bit silly standing in front of people on occasion and talking about the importance of making, because making has been around forever. And unless we understand the differences, we can't really appreciate the benefits. Traditional making, as we all know, is something that takes a long time to get good at. It's something that has been around for thousands of years and takes years to perfect, to become a carpenter or a woodworker or a plumber. It usually results in a trade or a craft, and it's just a big investment of time. That's changed because of some techniques from technology. And modern making is possible because of what's happened with technology, the price of technology, the power of technology. And it used to be that you could only make if you spent a lot of time and you learned a lot of things and you got good with dumb tools. Now, because technology is so cheap, we can put it into tools and we can make the tools smart. So think 3D printer, which we're all familiar with. But technology has also affected another thing, which is the internet, which has been around for 20 or 30 years, but up until recently was only used for virtual things, because making is, of course, a physical activity. It uses material, and the internet was all virtual. But all of a sudden, when you have smart tools, and you have an internet where you can share design files, and you can share programs and code, you make it possible for someone to very quickly say, I'd like to make something, use a smart tool, download a design, modify it with free software, and actually start making pretty quickly. And usually, because the tools are only available in certain places, you start collaborating with people. And so modern making is different because in traditional making, there were high barriers of entry. It took a long time to become proficient at being a woodworker or an electrician. You needed to be working with somebody who was an expert for a long time. And because it took so long, you only had a tiny fraction of society that would get involved in making. But with modern making, the barrier to entry was greatly reduced. All of a sudden, a little bit of guidance from somebody, a few hours or days, could get someone to start making. And if it takes a lot less time, then a lot more people can be making. So the benefits of making used to be only available to craftsmen, people who spent a lot of time, which meant very few. Now we have making that can be available to a lot of people. Benefits of making can go to a lot larger audience. So I've been talking about the benefits of making. There's so many, but let me just use one example to get this point across. And that's the example of education. Now, when you have smart tools and you have open source software and shared designs, you can do some remarkable things in an educational context. For instance, teachers now have access to tools and technology and free learning resources like curriculum and programs and code snippets. All of a sudden, they can bring into the classroom all sorts of things that allow people to start making and quickly start making. It means that they can start doing project-based learning. And when they do project-based learning, it means that people have to work together in teams. Students learn people skills. They learn to collaborate. They learn teaming skills, all important skills to develop. In addition, it teaches people how to have persistence, because when you make something, you invariably don't get it right the first time, so you have to try again and improve. And that process of overcoming obstacles and having the persistence to get it right, that's a really important skill to learn. And frankly, if people get excited about this, they may choose STEM careers in science and technology, engineering, and math. And at least in the United States, we need many more people getting back into that. So if students have a chance to make, then they get all of these benefits. And then later on, it can lead into innovation. They have an idea. They want to test that idea. They can start with designs that are provided. Learn and improve. And if it's a good idea, maybe they'll want to take it to market. So they can test market it and improve upon it. Then they can also do medium and small scale production. It used to be that craftsmen could only do a few things, making tens of a product, or go to a contract manufacturer and make thousands. But with the tools that we have, we can make small batches. And so this is just one use case, but I bring it up because making has so many benefits. And in this case, you see how the benefits are there in education. So if we can bring making to more people by lowering the barrier to entry, then we can get these. So how do we get making out into the world, into many more places? Well, I'll start by just giving you a little story that tells you how I personally have come to these conclusions I'll share with you. Back in 2010, I happened to be in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I attended the large Maker Faire that happens there. And what I saw simply, it just blew my mind. I was so surprised by what I saw was possible. And I wanted to understand better why it was happening, how it was happening. And I spent a couple of years running around the United States, Canada, and the UK. First off, just visiting makerspaces. But towards the end, I found that makerspaces were in libraries. They were in schools. They were in museums. And I was beginning to appreciate that institutions were embracing making because it helped them do their job better. It helped them accomplish their mission in a new way. But not until I went to a town called Chattanooga did I really learn the most important thing that I want to share with you, which is I went to Chattanooga because they were opening a new makerspace in the library there. I was just going to see a new makerspace in the library. But when I arrived, there were many different organizations around the table. I'll show you who those were in just a second. But my point is, there were all these organizations. They knew of each other, and they were working together as a coordinated group to change the nature of the city. And that was a really surprising insight. They had developed an ecosystem where libraries and museums, schools and makerspaces, and importantly, the city government were all aware of each other and working with one another and trying to coordinate a significant change in the city of Chattanooga. Chattanooga had been a manufacturer of textiles for many years, but in recent years, they had just been shrinking. A town that was not very productive was losing its population and wanted to reinvent itself. They decided they wanted to be a manufacturing hub for small and medium-scale production using digital technology, and they wanted to be a magnet for young people to come and be creative and create products. And to do that, they were all these institutions working together under the guidance and support of the city government. So I saw that lesson, and I was really impressed by it. So I came back to I was living in Washington, D.C. at the time, but I moved to San Diego. And in San Diego, I found a lot of making going on, but no coordinated making. No making organizations were working with other organizations, and the city government knew nothing about making. So I did a mini maker fair, and I very deliberately brought in all those institutions and set them side by side in the mini maker fair. And I spent much of the day introducing them to one another. On the right-hand side of this slide, you'll see the different institutions that were there. The library, the museums, several maker spaces, universities, I had major corporations. I set them all side by side and introduced them to one another. And to begin with, everybody thinks, oh, the library has a maker space. I'm a school, therefore the library must be my competitor. It's wrong. When people start to work with one another, they start to realize every organization has a different role. So a library, at least in the United States, a library is a place where everybody can go for free. People will go to the library and they'll see vinyl cutters or 3D printers, and they'll get their first exposure. But they're never going to get a lot of machine time, and they're never going to get deep training. The library plays a role of first exposure. Whereas, for instance, a makerspace might be a place that someone joins to have community and lots of availability of machine time, etc. So all these different organizations have different roles to play. And they need to become aware of one another, be familiar with what each does, and learn to work together and collaborate. Because of my mini maker fair, this beginning ecosystem was started. And at that time, it was about 8 months after my mini maker fair, the federal government, President Obama, came out with something called the Mayor's Maker Challenge, which I'll describe in just a second. But the reason I bring it up now is that it was because of all these players, all of these institutional players who were beginning to know one another, beginning to trust one another, beginning to collaborate. I was able to go to them all and say, let's talk to the mayor about accepting this challenge. And as a consequence, the mayor did accept the challenge, and you'll see why in a second that's important. It's important for a variety of reasons, but one of them is that 18 months later, when our biggest central park, which has been around for 100 years, and in the west coast of the United States, 100 years is a very long time, was celebrating its 100th anniversary, and we had a 25,000 attendee maker fair with 260 makers, all sorts of new people being exposed to making, and it was because this ecosystem was growing and kept growing, and we continue to grow that ecosystem, which is of all these institutions, all of these makers, and working together with the government. Here's what the Mayor's Maker Challenge was. The president said, we think there are lots of benefits to making, and we want mayors around the country to embrace making. Here are 10 things we'd like to challenge you to do. And mayors could sign up to take on 1, 2, 10 of these things. At this point, over 130 mayors around the United States have accepted this challenge. And in San Diego, we accepted 9 of the 10 challenges, more than any other city in the country. Let me just touch on a couple of these so you can get a sense of what the government was asking of the mayors in the cities. Form a maker's roundtable. A roundtable is just a regular meeting of the maker leaders in the city. Come to the mayor's office, meet once a month, once a quarter, coordinate activities, plan strategy, share developments, make sure that that ecosystem is growing, is healthy, and there's lots of communication. Very easy for a mayor to say, very easy for a city government to sponsor, and in the end, very effective to getting a lot of people working together to create a maker city. Another example here is encouraging mayors to support maker spaces. And there are lots of things that a city government can do for maker spaces. For instance, there are usually buildings that aren't being used or being underutilized. They can make space available. If there are rules that need to be changed to allow activities like making to go on, they can change rules, they can accelerate approvals. There are all sorts of things that a city can do, and they can sign up to help make maker spaces. Another one here is a maker strategy for education. To get the cities to figure out how to get more making into schools, because as I demonstrated earlier, there are so many benefits. And so here's an example of where an organization, in this case, it happened to be my mini Maker Faire team, we ended up forming a group called the Makers Guild. That's not important. What's important is that there's some group that acts as a catalyst, acts as an active agent to reach out and find the maker organizations and get them to work together. And once that starts happening, you have the beginnings of an ecosystem, which, when it can be aligned with the government's ambitions, and in San Diego, the mayor had as priorities innovation and opportunity and education. Promoting the maker movement is good for innovation. Promoting the maker movement is great for education. So it was a very natural thing for our government to want to support. And they didn't have to do all that much, but having their support made it very much easier to get more people on board, to get approvals, to get things done. Just a few quick examples of other cities and what they were doing. I mentioned Chattanooga earlier. Chattanooga had been a manufacturer and wanted to now be a digital manufacturing hub for small and medium scale manufacturing. That's what the city government wanted, and all of these groups were working together. But the catalyst, the lead trusted small organization that was doing this was the Central Library working with an incubator called Gig Tank. Again, the ingredients were that you had a trusted catalyst working to grow the ecosystem, and you had city government standing behind it. In New York City, long known for design innovation, they wanted to become hardware design innovation leads. And the mayor of New York City, Mayor Bloomberg, actually stood up and said he personally knew how important this was and assigned his economic development organization to be that catalyst in New York City to grow the ecosystem. Pittsburgh is known for a variety of things, but one of them is education. They have some exceptional universities and museums and that sort of thing. Their goal was to remake education and how it was done at the elementary, preschool, and university levels. And a foundation got that started, but a small nonprofit called the Sprout Fund was the catalyst ongoing to, again, nurture the ecosystem. They were a trusted small entity that everybody was willing to work with, and the city government, again, got involved. The maker could easily have been the catalyst. They'd work with libraries and with schools, but there was no mandate until in 2012, Calgary was made the arts and cultural capital of Canada and was provided with some funding, and that got things going. They all of a sudden had the approval of the city to grow that ecosystem, and the small makerspace there took the lead on that. So having an important objective that aligns with what the government and the city want to do, and having a catalyst are other ingredients in all of this. So as I promised, at the end here, I would share with you a roadmap that you can already have figured out from what I said earlier, but which I summarize here. Whether you're building a maker city or a maker region or a maker country, the idea that you have a catalyst that is trusted by the players in the community That catalyst, that little organization that can find new making groups, connect them with all the others, encourage collaboration, etc. Having a catalyst identified is a really important starting point. Once you have that, they continue to find new making organizations, connect them together, and get them working together. First, it's just by having them become aware of one another. Then, with that awareness and dialogue comes some trust. So they realize they each have different roles. They're not a threat to one another necessarily. They can collaborate. And with that, then they start to grow this ecosystem. Everybody has a role. And if it's done right, everybody wins. Securing an overarching support by aligning the making activity with city objectives or national objectives is a way of really legitimizing, making this thing be acceptable by all. And it's a really important ingredient in the mix. And then lastly, what you're doing right now, a Maker Faire, it's actually out of a Maker Faire in New York where this whole notion got rolling for me that a Maker Faire is a really important ongoing annual exercise. It brings everybody together, sees great projects, the different institutions get a chance to show what they're doing. It gives exposure to making to many more people, many more organizations, and it's just good for developing the ecosystem. So having an annual celebration is a great idea, whether it's to grow a maker city, a maker region, or a maker nation. And so this is one formulation that I've seen happen over and over again. And with that, I'll wind up for the next speakers. But this presentation is available to folks, and if you have questions, please feel free to contact me there below. In any case, thank you. If there's any other question right now, fine. If not, thank you.
现场有人有问题想要问 Mr. Travis Good 吗 ？No. And Travis, we are actually have our first Mini Maker Faire lab produced by local government. It's in New Taipei City. The city government decided to have a Mini Maker Faire. So I think we'll invite you next time, like very early, so you can make your schedule to be here. How about that?
Okay, great.
Okay, so thank you so much for sharing Maker City with us.
You're welcome. I'm having a hard time understanding its bad connection, but I'll thank you and I'll say have a great Maker Faire. Talk to you later.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.